As we delve into the early chapters of James Madison's life, we uncover the foundation upon which his profound contributions to American history were built. Born on March 16, 1751, in Port Conway, Virginia, Madison came from a family entrenched in the plantation aristocracy of the Old Dominion. His upbringing on the Montpelier estate offered him a front-row seat to the complexities of colonial governance and the intricacies of societal hierarchies. From an early age, Madison was recognized for his keen intellect. His health was fragile, often preventing him from participating in typical physical activities of youth, which perhaps funneled his energies more towards academic pursuits. His education began under the guidance of tutors at home, a common practice among the gentry of the time, and later, he attended the College of New Jersey, now known as Princeton University. At Princeton, Madison was an exemplary student, deeply engrossed in the study of languages, philosophy, and government. He completed his course in just 2 years, a testament to his intellectual veracity. It was at Princeton that Madison first encountered the broader ideas of liberty, justice, and republicanism that were beginning to percolate through the American colonies. Under the mentorship of Princeton John Witherspoon, Madison was exposed to Enlightenment ideals that championed reason and scientific inquiry over tradition and superstition. These ideas profoundly influenced his political philosophy and ethical viewpoints. Furthermore, Madison's education extended beyond formal schooling. He was a voracious reader, educating himself on a wide array of subjects which later served as a bedrock for his political theories and actions. His early exposure to the works of Locke, Montesquieu, and other Enlightenment thinkers equipped him with a framework that would later guide his pivotal role in drafting the Constitution and his arguments in the Federalist Papers. Thus, the formative years of James Madison were marked by a blend of traditional colonial upbringing and an extraordinary education in liberal arts and Enlightenment philosophy. This dual influence cultivated in him a deep sense of civic duty and a profound understanding of the principles of democratic governance. These early experiences not only shaped his ideologies but also prepared him for the monumental role he was to play in the birth and development of the United States. As we explore these early influences, we see the seeds of a statesman who would one day shape the destiny of a nation. Transitioning from the scholarly confines of Princeton into the tumultuous realm of revolutionary America, James Madison's early political career was a period marked by rapid intellectual and ideological development. As we explore this crucial phase of his life, we uncover how his formative experiences and education primed him for a significant role in shaping the emerging nation. Madison's entry into politics was almost inevitable, given his background and interests. In 1774, as tensions between the American colonies and Britain intensified, Madison became actively involved in the local committees of safety, a grassroots movement of patriot leaders. These committees were instrumental in coordinating responses to British policies, and Madison's involvement signaled his commitment to the American cause. In 1776, Madison's political career took a more formal turn when he was elected to the Virginia Convention, a gathering responsible for drafting the state constitution. This was a pivotal moment not only in Madison's life but in the broader context of American independence. The young Madison, though reserved and contemplative, impressed his peers with his profound knowledge and commitment to Republican principles. His work during the convention showcased his emerging philosophy that balanced strong central governance with the protection of individual liberties. Madison's contributions during this period were significant. He argued passionately for religious freedom and the separation of church and state, reflecting his belief in individual rights and the Enlightenment principles he had absorbed during his education. These debates provided Madison with a practical forum to refine his ideas and advocate for a government structure that would later influence his contributions to the U.S. Constitution. Following his service in the Virginia Convention, Madison was elected to the Virginia House of Delegates and later to the Continental Congress. These positions provided him with a broader perspective on the needs and challenges of the new nation. His time in Congress was particularly formative, exposing him to the administrative difficulties of the Articles of Confederation and reinforcing his conviction that a stronger, more cohesive federal government was necessary. Madison's early political career, thus, was characterized by a deepening engagement with the issues of governance and freedom that defined the Revolutionary period. His experiences at both the state and national levels not only honed his political skills but also solidified his reputation as a thoughtful and effective leader. These early years laid the groundwork for his future role as a principal architect of the Constitution, where his insights into the balance of power and federal structure would leave an indelible mark on American history. Through this lens, we see not just a politician but a visionary thinker poised to influence the foundational structures of governance. As we venture further into the remarkable journey of James Madison, we arrive at one of his most enduring legacies, his pivotal role in the drafting of the United States Constitution. This chapter in Madison's life showcases his profound intellectual rigor and visionary political acumen, which were instrumental in shaping the foundational document of American governance. In the sweltering summer of 1787, Madison arrived at the Philadelphia Convention with a clear vision and a detailed plan of government that would address the weaknesses of the Articles of Confederation. His preparation was meticulous, and he had spent months in advance studying the constitutions of various states and ancient confederacies to design a robust federal system. Madison's contributions to the Constitutional Convention were so significant that he earned the title Father of the Constitution. He was the principal author of the Virginia Plan, which proposed a strong central government with a system of checks and balances to prevent tyranny from any single branch. This plan laid the groundwork for the structure of the new government and reflected Madison's deep understanding of the need for a balanced distribution of power. During the intense debates at the convention, Madison advocated for a strong national government that could unify the disparate states while preserving their individual rights and sovereignty. His notes on the debates at the convention remain one of the most important historical documents, providing insight into the framers' intentions and the contentious issues they faced. Madison's vision was clear: to create a federal system that was capable of governing a vast and diverse nation while protecting the liberties of its citizens. He argued tirelessly for the inclusion of a system of checks and balances, and his influence can be seen in key components of the Constitution, such as the separation of powers among the legislative, executive, and judicial branches. One of the most contentious debates during the convention was the representation of states in the new Congress. Madison played a crucial role in forging the Connecticut Compromise, which established a bicameral legislature with proportional representation in the House of Representatives and equal representation in the Senate. This compromise was vital in securing the support of both larger and smaller states for the new Constitution. Madison's strategic foresight and unwavering commitment to Republican principles were pivotal throughout the convention. Following the drafting of the Constitution, he became one of its staunchest advocates, working tirelessly to ensure its ratification by the states. His efforts, along with those of Alexander Hamilton and John Jay, culminated in the series of essays known as the Federalist Papers, which argued for the adoption of the Constitution and helped to frame the principles of American government. In conclusion, Madison's role as the architect of the Constitution was not merely a function of his political office but a testament to his extraordinary intellectual and philosophical capabilities. His work at the Constitutional Convention stands as a testament to his legacy, illustrating how a profound thinker used his deep insights into political theory and practical governance to construct the bedrock of American democracy. As we reflect on his contributions, we see a figure whose work not only founded a nation but also articulated a vision of governance that balances power with liberty, a vision that continues to guide us today. As we continue to explore the monumental contributions of James Madison, we turn our attention to a pivotal chapter in his career and in the history of the United States, his role in the authorship of the Federalist Papers and the subsequent ratification of the Constitution. This period not only highlights Madison's intellectual prowess but also his strategic acumen in navigating the complex political landscape of his time. Following the conclusion of the Constitutional Convention in 1787, the newly drafted Constitution faced the daunting task of ratification by the states. There was significant opposition from those who feared that a strong central government would trample on the rights and liberties of the states and the individual. This group, known as the Anti-Federalists, was vocal and influential, arguing that the Constitution needed a Bill of Rights to safeguard individual freedoms. In response, James Madison, alongside Alexander Hamilton and John Jay, undertook the task of writing a series of essays aimed at defending the principles of the proposed Constitution and persuading the public and state legislatures of its merits. These essays, collectively known as the Federalist Papers, were published under the pseudonym Publius. Madison's contributions, particularly Federalist No. 10 and Federalist No. 51, are considered seminal works in the canon of political science and theory. Federalist No. 10 is perhaps Madison's most famous essay, where he addresses the dangers of factionalism. He argues that a large republic, constituted by the proposed framework of the Constitution, would be the best defense against the tyranny of majority factions because it could break and control their influence. This essay reflects Madison's deep understanding of human nature and political philosophy, advocating for a government strong enough to govern effectively but designed carefully to prevent tyranny. In Federalist No. 51, Madison elaborates on the system of checks and balances that would be necessary to maintain the separation of powers within the federal government. He famously asserts, "Ambition must be made to counteract ambition," emphasizing the importance of structuring the government in such a way that no one branch could overpower the others. This essay underscores his belief in a balanced government where each branch has both the incentive and the means to check the powers of the others. Madison's writings in the Federalist Papers were instrumental in shaping public opinion towards a favorable reception of the Constitution. His essays provided clear, compelling arguments that addressed the concerns of the Anti-Federalists and outlined the benefits of the new system of government, persuading many undecided delegates to ultimately ratify the document. The ratification process was arduous and fraught with contention, but by June 1788, the required 9 states had ratified the Constitution, leading to its enactment. Madison's role did not end with the Federalist Papers. He continued to influence the national dialogue by advocating for the addition of a Bill of Rights during the First Congress, which addressed the concerns of the Anti-Federalists and helped to secure the lasting legitimacy of the Constitution. In this chapter of Madison's life, we see a man deeply committed to the principles of democratic governance, wielding his pen as mightily as any sword to defend the intellectual underpinnings of the United States Constitution. Through the Federalist Papers, Madison not only helped to secure the ratification of the Constitution but also left a lasting legacy on the theory and practice of democratic government. His work during this period is a testament to the power of written word in shaping the course of history and governance. As we explore the illustrious career of James Madison, we now focus on his significant tenure as Secretary of State, a period marked by pivotal diplomatic challenges and substantial contributions to the shaping of the young American nation's foreign policy. Serving under President Thomas Jefferson from 1801 to 1809, Madison's role as Secretary of State was instrumental in defining the United States' stance in a global context during its formative years. Upon taking office, Madison was faced with the complex geopolitical landscape of a world dominated by the Napoleonic Wars in Europe. His approach to foreign policy was shaped by his deep commitment to Republican values and his strategic vision for the United States as a sovereign and independent nation on the international stage. One of Madison's most notable achievements during his tenure was the Louisiana Purchase in 1803. This monumental event nearly doubled the size of the United States and was a masterstroke of diplomacy and vision. Madison, working closely with President Jefferson, negotiated with France to acquire the vast territory, which stretched from the Mississippi River to the Rocky Mountains. This acquisition was not just a territorial expansion but also a significant strategic move that secured the young nation's western frontier and opened up immense possibilities for future growth and prosperity. Madison's tenure was also marked by challenges, particularly concerning the maritime rights of neutrals during the ongoing conflict between Britain and France. His steadfast defense of neutral rights underscores his broader foreign policy strategy, balancing diplomatic engagement with a firm stance on protecting national interests. The British practice of impressment of American sailors and the violations of American neutrality by both Britain and France led Madison to advocate for the Embargo Act of 1807. This act, which prohibited American ships from trading with all foreign ports, was a controversial measure aimed at asserting American sovereignty and rights without resorting to war. Although the Embargo Act was later seen as economically detrimental and was unpopular, it exemplified Madison's inclination to leverage economic measures as tools of diplomatic policy. Furthermore, Madison's period as Secretary of State was significant for the establishment of diplomatic norms and practices that would shape American foreign policy for years to come. His meticulous attention to the details of international law and treaty negotiations set standards for diplomatic conduct. His correspondence and negotiations with foreign dignitaries were marked by a principled approach that balanced respect for international conventions with a clear articulation of American interests. Madison also played a crucial role in shaping the administration's response to internal and external threats, overseeing the negotiations that led to the acquisition of Florida from Spain and dealing with the ramifications of the Barbary Wars. These actions further demonstrated his ability to navigate complex international issues with a combination of diplomatic finesse and decisive action. In conclusion, James Madison's tenure as Secretary of State was characterized by significant achievements that had lasting impacts on the development of the United States. His leadership during this period demonstrated his deep understanding of the intricate balance required in foreign policy, blending principled diplomacy with pragmatic strategy. Madison's legacy as Secretary of State is a testament to his visionary leadership and his profound impact on the course of American history, securing a place for the United States in the global community of nations while firmly upholding its national interests. As we delve into the presidency of James Madison, we begin with his first term, which commenced in 1809. Madison's ascent to the presidency was marked by a landscape of international tensions and domestic challenges that would define his leadership and test his diplomatic and administrative skills. Upon taking office, Madison inherited a nation still in its formative years, grappling with the questions of how to maintain its sovereignty in the face of European conflicts. His administration was immediately tasked with navigating the troubled waters of international diplomacy, particularly the ongoing disputes with Britain and France, which continued to impede American trade and tested the young nation's resolve. Foreign affairs and the prelude to war. Madison's foreign policy in his first term was dominated by these tensions. The British Royal Navy's continued impressment of American sailors and the seizure of American ships were sources of major conflict. Madison's efforts to negotiate were met with challenges, as neither Britain nor France showed willingness to respect American neutrality. This period saw the implementation and eventual repeal of the Non-Intercourse Act of 1809, which aimed to prohibit trade with Britain and France yet ultimately proved ineffective. In response to ongoing aggression, Madison signed Macon's Bill No. 2 in 1810, which restored trade with Britain and France but included provisions that would reimpose trade restrictions if either continued to violate U.S. neutrality. This bill, too, failed to deter aggressions, leading Madison towards considering more direct action. Domestic policies and challenges. Domestically, Madison faced a nation divided by regional interests and political factions. His leadership was marked by a struggle to balance these interests, including managing relations with Native American tribes, which were increasingly affected by American expansion. Madison's approach to domestic policy also included attempts to strengthen the nation's financial systems and infrastructure, although these efforts were often hamstrung by factional politics and fiscal constraints. Madison's reappointment of Albert Gallatin as Secretary of the Treasury was a significant move, aimed at stabilizing the American economy through fiscal reforms. However, these plans were largely overshadowed by the growing pressures for war against Britain, fueled by the War Hawks, a group of young, nationalist members of Congress from the South and West who saw war as the only viable response to British infringements on American rights. Leading up to the War of 1812, as pressures mounted, Madison's administration found it increasingly difficult to pursue peaceful resolutions. By the end of his first term, the continuous provocations by the British had shifted public and political opinion significantly towards conflict. Madison's diplomatic temperament was challenged by the growing call for war, which he had sought to avoid. In June 1812, after much deliberation and in response to continued British aggressions, Madison asked Congress for a declaration of war, marking the official start of the War of 1812. This decision was not taken lightly. It was the culmination of years of diplomatic efforts and represented a pivotal moment in Madison's presidency, where he shifted from a philosophy of economic coercion to military engagement. In conclusion, James Madison's first term as president was characterized by significant challenges and decisions that would define his legacy and shape the nation's trajectory. His leadership during this term reflected his deep commitment to American sovereignty and his evolving approach to governance, as he navigated the complexities of both domestic and international pressures. Madison's first term set the stage for the dramatic events of his presidency, which would continue to unfold in his subsequent term with the full onset of the War of 1812. James Madison's presidency was profoundly shaped by the War of 1812, a conflict that tested the resilience and unity of the young American nation. As we delve into this crucial period of Madison's second term, we explore the challenges he faced, the leadership he exhibited, and the impact this war had on his presidency and the country's development. Overview of the War. The War of 1812, often termed America's Second War of Independence, was primarily fueled by ongoing disputes over maritime rights and territorial expansion. British interference with American trade and their support for Native American tribes against American expansion were pivotal issues that led Madison to declare war. This conflict, while militarily mixed, was a significant test of the United States' resolve and its ability to stand up against the might of the British Empire. Key battles and military leadership. The war featured several key battles that highlighted both the strengths and weaknesses of the American military efforts. Early defeats, such as the capture and burning of Washington, D.C. in August 1814, where British forces burned the White House and the Capitol, were low points that tested national morale. However, Madison's leadership during these times was crucial. He remained in the city until the British approached, showcasing his resolve not to abandon the capital, which bolstered American spirits. Under Madison's direction, American forces also achieved significant victories. The Battle of Lake Erie and the defense of Fort McHenry, which inspired Francis Scott Key to write what would become the national anthem, the Star-Spangled Banner, were pivotal. The Battle of New Orleans, led by General Andrew Jackson in January 1815, was a resounding victory that occurred after the peace treaty had been signed but before news of the treaty had reached the U.S. This battle, in particular, boosted national pride and secured Madison's reputation as a wartime leader. Impact of the war on Madison's presidency. The War of 1812 had a profound impact on Madison's presidency. It demonstrated the need for a strong national defense and exposed weaknesses in the nation's infrastructure, leading to significant post-war investments in the military and economic systems. The experience of the war also galvanized a sense of American nationalism and unity, reinforcing the identity of the United States as an independent and capable nation on the global stage. Madison's handling of the war, despite initial unpreparedness and logistical challenges, eventually contributed to a strengthened federal government. His administration's efforts to finance the war led to innovations in banking and fiscal policies, setting precedents for future American economic policy. Conclusion of the war. The Treaty of Ghent, signed on December 24, 1814, formally ended the war and restored relations between the United States and Britain. The treaty did not address the issues of impressment or neutral rights, which had been initial causes of the war, but the cessation of the Napoleonic Wars in Europe helped to naturally resolve these issues. The end of the war brought a period of era of good feelings in which political strife within the United States diminished, and a sense of national unity prevailed. In sum, the War of 1812 was a defining aspect of Madison's presidency. Through this crucible, Madison not only navigated the United States through a significant international conflict but also laid the groundwork for future governmental and economic strengthening. His leadership during this period underscored his commitment to American sovereignty and demonstrated the resilience of the nation under his guidance. As we delve into the second term of James Madison's presidency, we explore a period marked by recovery and redirection after the tumultuous years of the War of 1812. This term is characterized by Madison's efforts to stabilize and strengthen the nation, focusing on economic reform, infrastructure improvement, and political unity. Rebuilding after the war. The aftermath of the War of 1812 presented numerous challenges for Madison and the young American nation. One of the most immediate tasks was the physical and economic reconstruction of areas devastated by the war. The capital city, Washington, D.C., required significant rebuilding, including the restoration of the White House and other key government buildings. Madison's administration faced the task of addressing the war's heavy financial toll. The national debt had grown, and the economy was in disarray due to interruptions in trade and the costs associated with the war effort. Madison, recognizing the need for a robust economic strategy, supported initiatives to stabilize the currency and strengthen the national bank, which played a crucial role in setting the stage for economic growth. Economic and political reforms. The post-war era under Madison also saw a shift towards internal improvements and economic development. Madison advocated for the American system, proposed by Henry Clay, which aimed at strengthening the economy through protective tariffs, a national bank, and internal improvements like roads and canals. Although Madison had reservations about the constitutional authority of the federal government to fund these projects, he recognized the importance of improving the nation's infrastructure to facilitate commerce and national integration. During his second term, Madison also dealt with lingering political issues from his first term, including disputes over states' rights and federal authority. The spirit of nationalism that emerged from the war helped ease some of these tensions, as there was a general consensus on the need for a strong central government to manage the country's affairs effectively. Foreign affairs. In a time of peace in foreign affairs, Madison's second term was a period of relative peace and normalization of relations with major powers, including Britain and France. The Treaty of Ghent, which had ended the War of 1812, helped to stabilize relations with Britain, although issues like boundary disputes and maritime rights continued to require diplomatic attention. Madison's administration worked towards strengthening diplomatic ties and expanding trade relationships, which were crucial for the country's economic recovery. The period also saw the continuation of efforts to deal with piracy and security in the Mediterranean, further establishing the United States' presence on the international stage. The era of good feelings. Madison's presidency concluded in an era often referred to as the era of good feelings, marked by a sense of national pride and political unity. This era was characterized by the decline of the Federalist Party and the rise of a more unified approach to governance under the Democratic Republicans, reflecting a period of less partisan strife and greater national coherence. In conclusion, James Madison's second term as president was a time of healing, rebuilding, and reform. It was a period when the foundations were laid for future prosperity and growth. His leadership helped navigate the nation through the aftermath of war and towards a path of economic stability and political maturity. Madison's presidency, especially his second term, thus encapsulates a critical phase of American history where resilience and visionary policymaking steered the country towards a new chapter of national development. James Madison's role in slavery is a critical and complex aspect of his legacy that must be addressed with careful consideration of the historical context and its implications. As we examine Madison's life and presidency, it becomes evident that his dealings with slavery reveal deep contradictions between his public political principles and his private practices. Madison's ownership of slaves. James Madison, like many of his contemporaries in Virginia's planter class, was a slave owner. Throughout his life, Madison owned hundreds of slaves who worked on his Montpelier estate. His personal dependency on slavery was at odds with his expressed ideals of liberty and human rights, which he championed in the public arena. This dichotomy is reflective of a broader moral and ethical conflict that many of the Founding Fathers grappled with. His views on slavery. Madison's views on slavery were complex and, at times, contradictory. Publicly, he recognized the moral problem of slavery and expressed beliefs that it was contrary to the fundamental principles of the new republic. In his writings and speeches, he occasionally pondered the injustice of slavery and advocated for the gradual emancipation of slaves, yet he never took significant action to end slavery either personally or politically during his lifetime. In the constitutional debates, Madison argued against counting slaves fully for representation purposes, which led to the Three-Fifths Compromise. He feared that a full count would empower the slaveholding South disproportionately, but also argued against immediate abolition, suggesting that such an action could fracture the young nation. Efforts toward a solution. Madison was involved in the American Colonization Society, an organization founded with the intention of repatriating freed African Americans to Africa. The society established Liberia, and Madison believed this could be a potential solution to the problem of slavery. However, the practicality of this approach and its impact were minimal, and the initiative did not address the systemic issues of slavery within the United States. Impact on his legacy. Madison's inability to reconcile his personal practices with his political ideals has led to a complex legacy. His role in perpetuating slavery casts a shadow over his contributions to American political theory and governance. It highlights the enduring struggle within American society to align foundational ideals with social and economic practices. Madison's relationship with slavery is a poignant reminder of the complexities and contradictions inherent in the history of the United States. It underscores the challenge of evaluating historical figures who contributed to the nation's founding principles while also participating in practices that contravene those very ideals. In conclusion, while Madison's intellectual contributions to the formation of the United States are undeniable, his involvement with slavery presents a deeply flawed aspect of his character and presidency. Understanding this part of his legacy is essential for a holistic view of his life and the early years of the American Republic, reminding us of the ongoing journey toward justice and equality. As we explore the final chapters of James Madison's life, we turn to his retirement and later years, a period marked by reflection, continued intellectual engagement, and ongoing influence in national affairs. After serving 2 terms as President of the United States, Madison retired to his Montpelier estate in Virginia, where he spent his remaining years deeply involved in both personal pursuits and public service. Life at Montpelier. Retiring in 1817, Madison returned to his Virginia estate, which had been his lifelong home. Here, Madison managed his large plantation, but the economic sustainability of Montpelier was often in question, burdened by the financial difficulties that plagued his post-presidency years. Despite these challenges, Madison's intellectual vigor remained undiminished. He continued to engage with political, philosophical, and agricultural theories, experimenting with new farming techniques and managing his extensive lands. Continued public engagement. Madison never fully withdrew from public life. His post-presidency years were filled with correspondence with former political allies, emerging statesmen, and intellectuals of the day. He was frequently consulted on matters of constitutional interpretation and political theory, providing advice that shaped the evolving landscape of American politics. Madison also played a pivotal role in the founding of the University of Virginia alongside his close friend and former President Thomas Jefferson. Madison succeeded Jefferson as the rector of the university, demonstrating his ongoing commitment to education and the nurturing of future American leaders. His involvement in the university underscored his belief in the importance of education and sustaining the republic. Advocacy for constitutional governance. Throughout his retirement, Madison remained a staunch defender of the Constitution and the principles it embodied. He was particularly concerned with the threats of secession and the proper balance of power between the federal and state governments. Madison's writings from this period, including his notes on the Constitutional Convention and his extensive correspondence, became invaluable resources for understanding the original intent of the framers. Madison was also an early advocate for the historical documentation and preservation of the founding era. He was meticulous in keeping records and correspondence, which provided a rich historical archive for future generations. His efforts in organizing and preserving these documents underscored his foresight in recognizing the importance of the founding principles and debates for future Americans. Final years and legacy. James Madison died on June 28, 1836, at Montpelier. His final years were marked by declining health, but he remained mentally acute until his death. Madison's last years were reflective, filled with reading, writing, and engaging with visitors who came to seek the counsel of the father of the Constitution. Madison's death marked the end of an era. He was the last of the founding fathers to pass away, closing the chapter on a generation that had shaped the United States from its inception. His contributions, both in public office and in retirement, left a profound legacy on American political thought and governance. In conclusion, James Madison's retirement and later life were characterized by a seamless continuation of his lifelong dedication to public service and intellectual inquiry. His contributions during these years not only enriched his immediate community but also provided a foundation of knowledge and philosophy that continued to influence the United States long after his passing. His enduring commitment to the principles of democratic governance and constitutional adherence remains a testament to his visionary leadership. As we draw closer to the conclusion of our exploration into the life and impact of James Madison, it is essential to reflect on the final chapter of his life, his death, and the enduring legacy he left behind. Madison's contributions to American political thought, his pivotal role in shaping the Constitution, and his presidency during challenging times all culminated in a legacy that has resonated through centuries. James Madison died on June 28, 1836, at his Montpelier estate in Virginia. He was 85 years old, making him one of the longest-lived of the Founding Fathers. His health had been declining for several years, but he remained intellectually engaged and socially active until the end. Madison's death marked the passing of the last significant figure from the revolutionary generation that had crafted the American Republic. His funeral was a solemn affair, attended by a wide circle of friends, family, and admirers who mourned the loss of a national patriarch. Madison's contributions to American history are profound and multifaceted. As the father of the Constitution, his intellectual and political acumen was instrumental in drafting a document that balanced the ideals of federalism and republicanism. His foresight during the Constitutional Convention and his subsequent defense of the Constitution through the Federalist Papers helped to establish a framework for American democracy that has endured for over 2 centuries. Moreover, Madison's presidency, particularly marked by the War of 1812, tested the resilience of the young nation under fire. Despite the challenges and criticisms faced during his administration, his leadership helped to solidify the nation's independence and strengthen its institutions. Madison's tenure as Secretary of State also saw significant diplomatic achievements, including the Louisiana Purchase, which doubled the size of the country and significantly expanded its geopolitical horizon. Madison's legacy is also evident in the ongoing relevance of his political theories and writings, which continue to be referenced in discussions about federal power, civil liberties, and the interpretation of the Constitution. His notes from the Constitutional Convention remain one of the most important records of the framers' intentions, providing invaluable insight into the constitutional debates that shaped the nation. Madison's political philosophy, especially his concerns about the tyranny of the majority and the importance of checks and balances, reflects a deep understanding of human nature and governance. These ideas remain central to American political discourse and have influenced democratic thought worldwide. While Madison's political legacy is largely celebrated, it is also complex, particularly regarding his ownership of slaves and his failure to take decisive action against the institution of slavery. This aspect of his life invites critical reflection on the contradictions between the ideals of liberty and the realities of his time, providing a nuanced view of Madison as both a product of his era and a progressive thinker. In conclusion, James Madison's death marked the end of a monumental life, but his legacy continues to influence the United States and the broader democratic world. His intellectual contributions, statesmanship, and the moral complexities of his life offer rich material for reflection and understanding the foundational periods of American history. Madison's legacy is not only preserved in the documents and institutions he helped to create, but also in the ongoing dialogue about governance, liberty, and justice in American society. James Madison's contributions to the political landscape of the United States are not only reflected in his actions and policies but also eloquently captured in his writings and speeches. His quotes and philosophical insights offer a profound glimpse into the mind of a thinker deeply engaged with the ideas of governance, liberty, and human nature. As we examine some of his most famous quotations, we gain further insight into the principles that guided his life and shaped the foundations of American democracy. Famous quotes. One of Madison's most influential quotes is from Federalist No. 51, where he articulates the need for checks and balances within the government. If men were angels, no government would be necessary. If angels were to govern men, neither external nor internal controls on government would be necessary. In framing a government which is to be administered by men over men, the great difficulty lies in this: you must first enable the government to control the governed, and in the next place oblige it to control itself. This quote underscores Madison's deep understanding of human imperfections and the necessity of a government structured to prevent the concentration of power and to safeguard against tyranny. Another significant quote from Madison highlights his views on the importance of a well-informed electorate. Knowledge will forever govern ignorance, and a people who mean to be their own governors must arm themselves with the power which knowledge gives. This statement, from a letter he wrote in 1822, speaks to Madison's belief in the critical role of education and informed citizenry in maintaining a functioning democracy. Madison's philosophical contributions can also be seen in his concerns about the tyranny of the majority, a theme he explored extensively in Federalist No. 10. He argued that a well-constructed union would break and control the violence of faction, a dangerous vice in popular governments. His solution, a large republic, was designed to dilute the influence of factions and prevent any single group from gaining too much power. Madison's political philosophy was deeply influenced by the Enlightenment ideals of his time, which emphasized reason, science, and the rights of individuals. He believed in a government that was robust enough to govern effectively but constrained by the rule of law and the separation of powers. His writings often reflect a tension between maintaining order and protecting individual freedoms, a balance he sought to achieve through the structures and systems outlined in the Constitution. The ideas and principles Madison articulated remain incredibly relevant in contemporary political discourse. His insights into the nature of government and the safeguards necessary to prevent abuse of power continue to inform debates on governance, civil liberties, and the role of government in individual lives. His vision for a democratic society, where power is distributed and checked, continues to influence not only the United States but democracies around the world. In conclusion, James Madison's quotes and philosophical writings provide a rich legacy of political thought. They serve as a reminder of the complexities of governing a free society and the ongoing need to balance power with liberty. Madison's profound insights into political dynamics and human nature continue to offer guidance and inspiration for both policymakers and citizens alike, reinforcing his standing as a pivotal figure in the founding and philosophical underpinning of American governance. In assessing the historical significance of James Madison, it is essential to explore how his contributions continue to resonate in contemporary political and social contexts. Madison's intellectual legacy, particularly in the realms of constitutional governance and the rights of individuals, provides enduring insights that remain relevant as we navigate the complexities of modern society. Madison's influence on modern American politics. Madison's impact on modern American politics is profound. His visionary work as the father of the Constitution established the framework for American government, emphasizing the separation of powers and the system of checks and balances. These principles are crucial in ensuring that no single branch of government gains unchecked power, a safeguard that is as vital today as it was in the 18th century. The architecture of the U.S. government, as envisioned by Madison, aimed to protect individual freedoms and prevent the tyranny of both majority and minority factions. This framework continues to influence contemporary debates about the balance between federal and state powers, individual rights, and the role of government in economic and social life. Madison's ideas in a global context beyond the borders of the United States. Madison's ideas have had a significant impact on the development of democratic institutions around the world. His writings, especially the Federalist Papers, are studied by political theorists, constitutional scholars, and policymakers globally for their insights into the design of government structures that promote stability, accountability, and governance. Madison's concept of a republic, a representative democracy where the populace exercises governance through elected officials, has influenced numerous democratic systems. His emphasis on a government controlled by laws, not by individuals, has helped shape the rule of law as a fundamental principle in many nations. Lessons from Madison's life and career. The dual aspects of Madison's legacy also offer lessons in the ongoing struggle to achieve ethical consistency in governance. His personal failure to resolve the moral contradictions of slavery despite his philosophical commitment to liberty and equality serves as a cautionary tale about the complexities of political leadership and the dangers of moral compromise. Madison's engagement with issues like the balance of power, the role of factions, and the importance of an educated electorate provides valuable lessons for addressing contemporary challenges in democratic governance. His advocacy for a well-informed citizenry as a bulwark against tyranny underscores the importance of transparency, education, and civic engagement in today's political climate. Conclusion today, as we face numerous challenges, from political polarization and the threat of authoritarianism to debates over civil rights and national governance, Madison's insights remain remarkably pertinent. His intellectual legacy not only helps us understand the foundational principles of democratic governance but also inspires us to reflect on and refine these principles in response to changing societal needs. James Madison's influence thus extends far beyond his lifetime, continuing to offer guidance, inspire democratic ideals, and provoke thoughtful debate on governance and the rights of individuals in the modern world. His life and work serve as a reminder of the enduring importance of principled leadership and the constant need for vigilance in the defense of liberty and justice. As we conclude our exploration of the life and legacy of James Madison, it is clear that his contributions to the United States are both profound and complex. From his early intellectual foundations through his critical role as a founding father and statesman, Madison's impact on American history is indelible. This journey through his life offers not only a reflection on his achievements but also on the enduring principles that guide democratic governance. Summary of key points: Madison's intellectual rigor and commitment to crafting a government that could sustain the ideals of liberty and effective governance were evident throughout his career. As the father of the Constitution, he laid down the architectural framework for American democracy, emphasizing the importance of checks and balances and the separation of powers to prevent tyranny and safeguard freedoms. His presidency, marked by both internal challenges and the external pressures of the War of 1812, tested and ultimately affirmed the resilience of the young nation he helped to build. Despite the trials of war and political strife, Madison's leadership helped to solidify the nation's independence and contributed to a strengthened federal government. However, Madison's legacy is not without its contradictions, particularly regarding his personal and political stance on slavery. These contradictions provide a critical lens through which we can evaluate the complexities inherent in the practice of governance and the pursuit of moral integrity in public life. Reflections on Madison's role in shaping America. Madison's influence extends beyond the specific actions and policies of his time. His writings, especially the Federalist Papers, continue to be pivotal in interpreting the U.S. Constitution and understanding the principles upon which American government is built. His vision for a balanced government capable of governing a diverse and expansive nation remains relevant as we confront contemporary challenges in political governance. Final thoughts: reflecting on Madison's life, we are reminded of the constant interplay between idealism and practicality in the practice of governance. His life's work encourages us to strive for a balance between these forces, to safeguard the liberties we cherish while effectively addressing the collective needs of a diverse society. Moreover, Madison's story is a testament to the importance of intellectual preparation, principled leadership, and the courage to address the foremost issues of one's time, qualities that are as essential for today's leaders as they were for those of Madison's era. In closing, James Madison's legacy teaches us about the power of ideas and the impact of thoughtful, informed leadership. His contributions to American political theory and practice continue to inspire and challenge us to pursue a more perfect union, mindful of both the achievements and the shortcomings of those who laid the foundations of our national life. As we move forward, let us carry with us the lessons from Madison's life, which illuminate the path toward thoughtful governance and enduring democratic principles. Thank you for joining me in this reflective and enlightening exploration of one of America's foundational figures.